Hello, I am Simulated Erk, and welcome to episode number... Hang on, did I get this right? No. 05? Episode 50 of Train Simulator. Simulated Erk Train Simulator. Hello and welcome. What we're going to do today to celebrate this milestone 50 episodes, and when you consider that an episode of Simulated Erk is at least an hour, that's over 50 hours of Train Simulator alone, not including Train Sim World and anything else. So here we are in Paris in France. We're at Marseille St. Charles, and we're heading over to Agnion. And what we're doing today is something that we did around episode 24. I called it on that occasion the Chengdu High Speed Challenge. We got the high speed line in China, and we got various trains that we drove over there, because as a train driver, one of the things that you're often asked when someone finds out that you're a train driver, they'll say, "Hey mate, how fast can you go? How fast can the train go?" And then sometimes the question is, where's the steering wheel and all that sort of stuff. But a question that train drivers are often asked by railway civilians is, how fast can the train go? So on Train Simulator, I thought a few episodes ago, on episode 24, that I would come and find out. So what I did, the same stretch of line, some high-speed trains and some trains that quite frankly weren't high-speed, put them on the same stretch of track, drive them the same way, and then see what happens. Now, since then, my production has improved a lot. I've got a lot more trains. This is actually one of the very first sections, or one of the first, if not the first route that was available for Train Simulator when I first purchased the game. I think it was like 2016. The 2016 version, that I purchased. So what we're going to do on this episode, not only is this going to be a high-speed test such as this train here, the Amtrak Acela, for some of the other trains that we've featured, it's going to be more like just a showcase, because quite frankly, you can't put a little two-car diesel train next to this train and expect the two-car diesel to win on a speed challenge. That's just not going to happen. So let's go in the cab. We're all set up and ready to go. There's a short section of 30 mile an hour. 30 kilometre an hour, and then a 60 kilometre an hour zone before we start to hit 110, 140 and go higher than that. Disclaimer, do not drive like this at home. Do not drive like this at home. This is for simulation and entertainment purposes only. So let's have a bit of horn. It's a good horn comparison test too, by the way. Big old American horn. Alright, reverser in forward. Brakes off. Now for this section, we are going to drive in cab and keep to the 30 kilometre an hour. We're in France, so it's all kilometres per hour. Handy comparison though. With an American model, for instance, the dash is still in miles per hour. So at the moment, I can tell you quite easily just by looking at it that I'm travelling at 20 kilometres an hour or 12 miles an hour. So green lights ahead. This train also features in-cab signalling, which obviously won't work because we have taken the train out of its natural environment. So this line is a lot sweeter, and it's a lot better looking than the Chinese high-speed track that I ran it on before. Lots of trains around, lots of TGVs, and we'll see some as we get out of there. Signal box on the left hand side there. So lots of diverging truck at this stage, so the speed isn't high. I have been on this train when I was in America, and also have been on this line when I was in Paris. So it's weird and strange and annoying, all those words, to think that the last time I travelled overseas was 2014. Around about this time of year, actually, I would have got back from my last trip. And then I haven't been overseas again, and I don't know when we'll be able to go overseas again. But Train Simulator, let's get going. 60 zone coming up now. The order in which I'm doing these, by the way, isn't in episode order, or what I think is going to be the higher speed or whatever. It is going to be in the order which they appear on the Train Simulator menu. All of the vast majority of these trains have been purchased. Most of these trains have been purchased. There are some reskins. What I am going to do with the reskins is show one of the reskins, because it's all based on the same. It's all based on the one train, and then the reskins are just reskins. Then there's nothing mechanically different about the train. So we are going to take it a little bit easier to this 110 kilometre an hour signpost that's coming up. I'm not concerned about how long it will take the train to reach the top speed. I did have a test run before. Thank you, mute button. I did have a test run before on this train, and I have seen part of the route. It's not as flat as the high speed line in China, in Chengdu, that I ran on episode 24. There are some hills. What I will do, I'll give the train a decent chance, and see over a sustained period of time what the high speed will be on a flat section. So while there may be a downhill section where the train might go a little bit faster, we'll run on what the higher speed on a level section of track is, and we'll drive the trains all in the same way. So we're just going to come up now to the 140 kilometre an hour section, and then we'll open the train up and we'll let you see what it's like outside, because it's a weird thing, but it's also a nice thing to be able to see a train in an environment which it normally doesn't appear. When will be the next time that you'll be able to see an American high-speed train in France, for instance? Alright, so we'll just get to the 140 board, and then we will open her up, and we will go on and live a happy, speedy life. Two handles, one for the brake, one for the power in this particular instance. So we'll increase the power now. So our power is increasing. Let's go outside. And here we are. Here is the Acela. Runs on the Northeast Corridor in the US. Have ridden on this train on some of the Northeast Corridor. Haven't ridden it all the way. One of the earlier trains that I purchased on Simulated Erk Train Simulator. One of the very early episodes. And I know with the production and all the behind the scenes, a lot has changed in those 50 episodes. So we're coming up to 190 kilometers an hour. Just about to enter a tunnel section. Couple of tunnels going up, so we'll go back in the cab. We'll go back in the cab briefly. 222 kilometers an hour, just passing and entering the tunnel. 141 miles per hour, 142, 143 miles an hour, 144 miles an hour, thanks to the in-cab display, which of course is still in imperial measurements because it's an American engine. 240 kilometers an hour. Just passing another TGV. Back in the tunnel now. Now this tunnel starts down low and we're on a steady uphill slope now. So I'm going to let the train just ride through this tunnel. So and then we'll give it a chance to level out. You can see on the right hand side the track speed and the signal speed. That has to do with the in-cab signalling. The two signals, the two displays above the figures on the right. Of course, this won't work on this train because it's on a route that it's not designed for. So we're almost at the top of the uphill section of the tunnel before it starts to level out. A long tunnel this one. So this episode not necessarily about excellent train driving, it's just more about the speed. 238 and we're still going uphill. Just before the summit of this hill and the exit to the tunnel, 300 kilometer an hour zone, which is coming up. And then we'll start to level out and see how much further we can go. There's the light at the end of the tunnel. $237, 238, 230 zone at the moment. We're in 300 mile an hour zone. Just about to appear. There's actually a replacement model for this particular train, which is currently in testing in the eastern side of the US, which will be able to increase the speed and increase the passenger amenities, as we said, TGV pulling into the station there. 249 kilometers an hour. Still relatively still flat at the moment. There is a short downhill section coming up, so we'll give the train a little bit more time. We'll let it go down this downhill section. Now we won't count the maximum speed as it's going downhill. But we'll see how fast it can go. 256 kilometers an hour. But we are on a downhill slide, a downhill slope at this point in time. So I hope you're enjoying the action. Lots of action to come from high-speed trains and some trains that aren't necessarily as high speed. But it will be good to showcase them all in the one episode. So if someone says to me in the future, "Hey Erk, what sort of trains do you drive on Train Simulator?" Have a look at episode 50. And that will tell you perfectly, that'll show you perfectly the variety of trains that I've driven. I'm even going to drive some steam trains, or some engines at least. I'm not sure if some of them will have carriages attached to them. Just driving in quick drive mode, so no scenarios or anything like that. Still going on a little bit of an uphill grade. We'll be confirming all of these top speeds during editing. But in the ballpark of 250 seems to be... Wow, that's a good view. That TGV is going rather slow compared to us. There was that other train that was just ahead of us though, or ahead of it, I should say. So we're now on an uphill section. We'll just let the train level out again, see if we can just improve that score just that little bit. We are 62 kilometers away from the destination on this route. We won't be reaching that. That's not the idea, to get all the way. We're almost at the summit of this little hill. This route isn't necessarily as flat as the high-speed route that was in Chengdu that I featured on episode 24 during that speed challenge, but the route's certainly better, certainly more picturesque, certainly an excellent route to showcase all of these trains on. Next train is a Chinese high-speed train, and let's get into some action. Very sleek looking there on the outside. Let's go now and get this. Now, the last time we featured this on the Chengdu High Speed Challenge, this train was on home turf in China. It's not on home turf now, but it should still be very, very sweet and get to a good top speed. So we'll just continue on with our slow run out of the terminal. Now, have I ridden on this type of train in China? No. Have I ridden on a similar type of Japan? Have I ridden on a similar type of Japan? You'd think after 50 episodes I could speak. Have I been on a similar train in Japan? Yes. Have I been to China? Yes. Did I go on a train in China? No. Did I spend 45 minutes in China only to buy a Pepsi from a 7-Eleven and head back to Macau and then Hong Kong? Yes. I was in, I think it was 2011. I was doing a massive circle. I started in Australia, I headed to the US, then I flew across to Japan, then I flew down to Hong Kong, then I flew home. Now, of course, I did some side trips in the US, and I was spending a week in Hong Kong, and you know, by that stage I'd already been to Japan twice, but it was my first time. I don't know what that beep is. I don't know if that's a happy beep. I don't think that's a happy beep. Was there something supposed to be something and I was supposed to acknowledge? Okay. Hope this isn't going to keep going on. We need to do some higher speed. Not. Hang on. Maybe I have to stop. That's embarrassing. Okay, that's the horn. What now? You know, I haven't driven this train for a while, but there's nothing obvious. What does that button do? Maybe I had to use the emergency. Okay. I don't want this to happen when I'm supposed to be doing high speed a little bit later on. Don't know, is this? Oh, well, this is pretty useless. Oh, hang on, we've got a red signal coming up here. This didn't happen before in the other scenario. Let's see. Okay, we've asked the signal to clear the signal, so hopefully now we can get going. That's what happens when you're busy telling stories, and because you just want green lights, you just want to get out of here. So the train was doing that, not me, to bring that train, to slow that train down, because it recognised that there was a red signal ahead. So we'll just shut off. It's still 30 kilometres an hour. So I was in Hong Kong. I was in Hong Kong for a few days exploring the metro system and that sort of thing. All good. And then I saw lots of ads around saying, hey, come across to Macau, come across to Macau. Now, for me, I referenced Macau as the Asian version of Vegas, where a major reason for it to be there is because of gambling. So what I decided to do, I don't gamble, you know, I don't do the whole casino things. You know, they might be fascinating to walk through once. I've stayed at a couple of casinos in the US just because they're good sources of accommodation. And there's lots of things to do in a casino over there that's not necessarily an actual casino, you know, casino type stuff. You know, lots of places to eat, non-gambling related shows and all that sort of thing. So I decided to do something a little bit different. There's a ferry route that runs between Hong Kong and Macau. But on the way over there, I decided, because it was, you know, probably cheaper to do it in an Asian country than to do it in Australia. I got a helicopter. I got a helicopter over to Macau, and I got the ferry back. I've arrived in Macau and got off the helicopter, which is coincidentally at the same place that the ferry terminal would be anyway. So would drop you off at the same place. I get off the helicopter, walk through the terminal, and then I see signs. Now, Macau's pretty well signposted because there's 3 main languages over there that they recognise. There's Mandarin / Chinese, Portuguese because of the history of Macau, and also English. There was a sign that said Border Town. So I like borders, you know, the whole passing from one state to another or one country to another sort of thing, and I thought, okay, let's head towards Border Town. Now, I didn't do any research about where I was going to go, what I was going to do in Macau. I thought I'll just get there and I'll see what happens when I get there. And I saw that I can get a bus to Border Town. Sweet. So I get in this local bus, and I head over, and I head through the streets of Macau, past lots of casinos and everything like that. And I get to, but I didn't know it at the time, the Border Town bus terminal. But I didn't know. I didn't see any signs that said Border Town in English or whatever. And, you know, it didn't terminate there and the bus driver said to get off or whatever. It just basically did a loop. So what we'll do, we'll open up the throttle we'll open up the throttle and we will start to get this train up to some high speed, shall we? Oops, well, we won't do it that way. Alright, let's get the train up to speed. Gee, might need to adjust that angle. So I've arrived at the Border Town bus station, even though I didn't know that it was the Border Town bus station. It's not as if the bus driver said, get off the bus or anything like that, or it stopped there for a large amount of time. It just made a stop and then it continued. So I thought, oh, we haven't made it to Border Town yet. So we've continued. Oh no, it's not going to do this, is it? It's not going to detect that we're speeding and we're automatically going to slow down. I think that's what it's doing. This is interesting. So we're just going to we'll just let the train do the work. We do have a 160 zone coming up and then a 300 after that. So we'll be a 230 then a 300. So we'll be able to let the train open up. This is very interesting. Even though it's on a foreign route, it's somehow picked up that I'm speeding and it is slowing itself down. So we're back in the cab. So the buses continued after what I later found out was Border Town. Now the only reason that I knew that we were heading back to the ferry port was that I started recognizing buildings that I saw on the way there. Oh, now this isn't good at all. It's braking for me. This is the train doing that. This isn't me. So this is not me. Oh, really? Now this is an interesting development. Let's go back in cab. Now is there another button that I'm supposed to press? Wow, this is a false start. Hey, Chinese train, can you at least let me finish telling the story here? Maybe it's like I have to pass another. Oh, okay, I get it now. There's another. That's a pain in the backside. We'll go up to the signal. There's a This didn't happen with the first train. There's a signal up ahead, and this certainly didn't happen in the high-speed challenge in Chengdu. So we'll ask permission to. We'll ask permission to pass this signal at stop. We'll just concentrate on this for a minute. Maybe we have to be a bit closer to the signal. Alright, let's see. Can I pass this signal? Can I contact the signaller and say, hey, we're in the middle of recording a high-speed challenge. Standing in a signal isn't necessarily helping. This is not good at all. This isn't going to plan, is it? This is certainly not going to plan. Maybe the French authorities aren't happy with me. Like, I'm no expert in French signalling, but to me, I can't go past that signal, and it's not letting me. Or maybe I can. Maybe that white light lets me. I don't know. Let's have a look. Oh, well, there we go. I could pass it. No wonder why the wouldn't let me call the signal. So let's get up to speed and let's finish the story, shall we? I started recognising buildings on the way back. I'm thinking I've already passed here. I've already, I know that casino. I've already passed it. I'm heading back to the wharf. So I get off the bus. And then I walk around for a little bit, get something to eat, and then in the end I end up getting in a taxi and somehow communicating with the driver. Wow. Communicating with the driver to say, can you drive me to Bordertown? So I get to Bordertown, have something else to eat. There's a McDonald's within sight of the Bordertown. And is that a happy beep? We're only doing 125 kilometers an hour, so we're not speeding this time. Maybe there's another signal or something ahead of us. No, there must be another signal ahead of us. So eventually, there is another signal coming up. So eventually, I have a look at Bordertown, and to me, it doesn't look like a typical, border situation. It just looks like you're going into like a big football stadium or something like that. And I see, so it's not letting us go past here. Now the other train, the last train and the first train that we did, which is the same train, now it's letting us get back up to speed, I think, just based on what I can see on the speedo. So we'll see how we go now. So I see they've got these massive screens and it keeps on alternating between these statistics and saying things like number of people in, number of people out, that sort of stuff. I see lots of people going in both directions. A lot of people heading from Macau, leaving with shopping bags and all of that sort of thing. But there's no sign that I can see in English to say, this way to wherever. Welcome to Bordertown. You are now leaving Macau. You are entering, insert place here. So I'm wondering, what is this place? So I go up to an information lady inside the building. I've still got no idea. Are we going to do this again, really? Gonna have to disqualify this Chinese train if we keep on going, because the train is braking itself. So we will bring the speed down. We weren't even doing like 100 kilometers an hour. Must be signals up ahead. There is a signal again coming up. This better not happen with the other trains, or I will not be happy. I don't want to have to go back to China to do this exercise. So say to the information lady, I say, where are these people going? Because I'm thinking maybe people get on there and they get processed and then they get on a bus to the airport or to a cruise terminal or something like that, and then they go, or maybe it's a cruise terminal, I don't know, I can't see. So the lady says to me, now her English was pretty good, but you know, she's an information lady at what I found was an international checkpoint, so you would like to think so. Me, where are they going? They're going to China. Can I go to China? I said. She says, maybe you'll have to ask upstairs. So I went upstairs, and there was it was either police or customs. So I said to the Macau authorities, can I go to China? And they said, I don't know if you can go to China. You may not be able just to walk into China. Because the information lady did tell me that those people that I could see were walking to China. And I said, okay, so if I try to get into China and China says no, will you let me back in? Remembering that all my stuff is in Hong Kong and I'm in Macau. Macau and Hong Kong are special administrative regions of China. And he said, yeah, we'll let you back in. Now, I was a trusting soul. So I walk the half a kilometre. Here we go again. I walk the half a kilometre. I arrive at the Macau exit, and there's 3 main groups of lines that are fairly evenly distributed. There's a line, or a series of lines for Macau and Hong Kong residents, which was about a third of the lines. There was a third of the line for Chinese residents, and the other third were for anyone else. So I leave Macau, get my passport stamped, and I walk about the 400-500 meters to China. I get to the Chinese side, and there's massive amount of lines. 99% of those checkpoints. Now we're going backwards. So we'll play this game again. I just want to get out of the tunnel. We definitely seem, I haven't changed the reverser, but we definitely seem to be going backwards. Now we're going forwards again. So I've got to cruise up really slowly to this marker. This took longer than I thought. So I enter the Chinese side. There's 99% of the lines were for Chinese residents, and the 1% for everyone else. Now, if you know me, you know that I like signs, information, reading things, seeing what's going on, etc. And I somehow spot this one sign on a little piece of paper in English, and it was nothing official by any stretch of the imagination, saying about visas. Now, I didn't know China was there 10 minutes ago, so obviously I don't have a Chinese visa. So I go into there's a line for children, diplomats, and people with special needs. Well, I wanted information, so as far as I'm concerned, I had a special need. I was trying to get into China without a Chinese visa, and I didn't even know China was there 5 minutes ago. So the man says, what are you doing here? I want to go to China. I need visa. So he pointed me upstairs to the visa office. You know, it's not necessarily signposted or anything like that, but he tells me where to go. So I go up there, and they said, I can get a visa on the spot. I can get an on-the-spot visa, but it will cost me 179 Chinese yuan. Now, I don't have... Oh, really? I don't have 179 Chinese yuan. I have Hong Kong dollars in my wallet, which they don't accept. I have my Australian credit card / cards that they don't accept. They want 179 Chinese yuan. I managed to get out of the person. Now this is epic fail. I managed to get out of the Chinese person that there's a, go downstairs, maybe get currency exchange or an ATM and get some Chinese yuan so I can, because they won't accept anything else. Now it's a big, looked like duty-free shops. Now this isn't obviously the way you're supposed to do it, but this is the quickest way. I'm going to finish this story and then I'm going to go on to our next train. China, you're disqualified. Uh-oh, I'm in trouble with the Chinese now, aren't I? I somehow find a currency exchange, and I don't know if I was getting a good deal. All I wanted was 179 Chinese yuan and some, maybe a little bit left over so I can get a drink or something. So I get my 179 Chinese yuan, I go back to the visa office, get the visa, get back in line. Didn't have to wait too long. That's one thing. The Chinese are very efficient. Didn't have to wait too long. Got my visa stamp. Now my visa was a 3-day visa for that particular area only, and I couldn't go to anywhere like Beijing or Shanghai or anything like that. I can only stay in that area. Supposed to report to police on arrival in my accommodation. That being said, of course, I wasn't going to be staying in any. Now we might actually be able to get some speed up. I wasn't going to be staying in any accommodation. I had so many people ask me if I wanted a taxi. I had no idea what was going to be on the Chinese side. For all I knew, it just could be a dirt track leading to a Chinese shanty village. But it was fairly similar to, it was highly urbanized, highly industrial. Hang on, I said, this is scary. I said, let's disqualify China. Now it's letting me get up to speed. This is scary. So we're nearly at 200 kilometres down. Now, perseverance eventually pays off. So I walked around, had a look in some of the shops, which, to be honest, wasn't any different from any other shop in any other Asian place that I'd been to that point. I found a 7-Eleven. I purchased a bottle of Pepsi, drunk it, and then I walked back to, left China. I was in China for about 45 minutes because I had to get back. I had a ferry booked and I still had to get back to the Macau ferry port and then back to Hong Kong to get to be my stuff because it was only going to be a day trip. So that was the time that I spent 45 minutes in China to buy a bottle of Pepsi and then go back. Now, since then, I've learned a lot more about Chinese culture. My favourite Chinese dating show, If You're the One, where a series of men try to meet a series of women, and on SBS in Australia. or Viceland, whatever they want to call themselves this week, whenever they decide to show the show. But it is on SBS On Demand as well, if you are the one. Very funny, very hysterical, also very cultural for Chinese culture. China is on my list of places to go back to at some stage, but who knows when that's going to be. 256, 255 kilometres an hour. We'll let the train go for a bit more, and we'll see. It's actually fairly similar in speed to what the Acela did. After all that trouble we had to get to this point to get into the 300 kilometre an hour zone, so it could really stretch its legs. So we'll give it a little bit extra time to get up to speed. 255, 256. We're at the bottom of the hill, starting to climb up. 257, 258 as we pass over this viaduct. So yeah, that was the time that I went to China for 45 minutes to buy a bottle of Pepsi, and I didn't even know that China was there. The bus ride back to the Macau ferry wharf went without incident. Getting back into Macau and Hong Kong, no incident. Back to the hotel room, because during all this time I didn't have internet until I got back to the hotel. So my Facebook status when I got back to the hotel said, "Today I walked to China, ... And I don't know how many times I've told this story on a podcast in person, but you've now heard it on Simulated Erk. And it is slowing us down again. We're not going to be doing anything with this after this. So we'll just let the train slow down. We'll see how long it takes to get to an actual stop. Little bit disappointing. I don't think that it actually got to its highest speed. We'll put it in the book anyway, even though I did say I disqualified China earlier. It did get to about 250 as well. But clearly it's not going to let us get up to that. So a little bit of disappointment there. Welcome back to Simulated Erk, Train Simulator episode 50. This train isn't going to win any speed challenges, but it is featured here. I actually haven't featured it yet on Simulated Erk. This will be coming up in an episode or two time. This is an intercity train from the Netherlands. You don't necessarily see a lot of the Netherlands. I certainly haven't seen it within Train Simulator itself. This is from Just Trains that I've purchased and installed outside of Train Simulator. I did actually ride on these trains between the Netherlands, between Amsterdam and Schiphol Airport. So I have ridden on these trains before. Let's have a look inside the cab. Wow, that just looks like a big steering wheel. That's a European influence. I've seen that on the ICE trains and TGV. That sort of device, I guess you can call it. Anywho, let's give a bit of horn, and we'll put the reverser into forward. We'll turn the brakes off. And we'll get going. Now, I'm not expecting any type of massive speed out of this train, but I'm going to show you this because one thing that I do like with Train Simulator is the ability to have trains from different countries. And, you know, when am I going to be able to drive a... yeah, we'll just shut off here because it is a... 30 kilometre an hour zone still. When am I going to be driving a Dutch train anytime soon? Now, as far as I know, there's no Dutch routes to accompany this. or available anywhere, so you just have to drive it on other tracks. Pretty much like the New Zealand diesel rail car that I featured on the last couple of episodes. So highly detailed cab, that's for sure and certain. We'll explore more of this in the upcoming episode, but we'll bring the train up to speed. We'll see what it can do. This is the first time that I've actually driven this train, but we'll see how it goes. And when we get up to the 110 zone, we'll open up the throttle and basically see what happens here. Hopefully we'll have a bit of a smoother run than we did with that Chinese train. I really enjoyed Amsterdam. Met a rather nice lady there. Nice holiday romance started in Amsterdam. Went to the Anne Frank Museum, which was interesting. Got lost on a canal boat. I hired a canal boat for an hour. It's basically a boat that you can pedal, and you can get around the various canals of Amsterdam. So we're coming into the 60 zone, so we'll be able to open up the throttle a little bit more. Then we've got 110 after that. I went and I hired this pedal boat in Amsterdam. I hired it for an hour and I had to pay a deposit. Now the interesting thing was that they were happy with the hour payment and the deposit. They never asked to see any identification. I never filled in a form or anything like that. Now if you haven't been to Amsterdam, there's a whole series of canals which you'd probably be familiar with, but if you haven't been to Amsterdam, there's a whole series of canals which in a way are a little bit like streets. They're not as many canals as there are streets, but it's a decent network of canals around Amsterdam. And the company who hired out the pedal boats, you didn't have to bring the pedal boat back to the same place. They had about 3 or 4 other places around the canal network that you could just drop your boat off, and because I walked there, so it wasn't as if I had to go back to the same one to pick up my car or anything like that. So we'll head outside. So here's looking at the train from the outside. Double deck. Does that say empty train? Oh, extra train. Not empty train. I thought it said empty train, but close. So 97, 98 kilometers an hour, just cracked 100. So I'm paddling around, had no destination in mind, nowhere where I had to be. So I'm pedaling and my leg strength's always been pretty good. So I've pedaling around 128, 130 now. So it's going decently well. I'd love to be able to modify this paint scheme and maybe paint it something that I'm a little bit more familiar with. I think that'd be awesome if I knew how to do that. So I'm pedaling around, and an hour's passed at this point, and by this stage, I'm thinking, well, my hour's up. I'm just going to hand over the boat at the first return station that I see. So we've hit 140. So we've hit 140. That's okay. So I'm thinking to myself, well, we'll just keep going, and we'll reach the return station shortly, and able to hand the boat back, and no drama. It'll be all good, and I'll just explain. You know, it's a little bit late, and they're probably used to that anyway. You know, with tourists and whatnot. So I continue as we're back in tunnel. So I continue pedaling around, and you know, the 90 minutes marks come up now. I'm starting to feel a bit tired. 2-hour marks come up, and I still haven't seen a return point. And I'm just pedaling around. I'm like, well, if I just keep on taking random turns, I might get back to. I might find a point. I couldn't see any points on the map. I'm pretty sure I wasn't using internet on the phone, which would have been handy, quite honestly. Then I start seeing myself heading out onto the harbour, and I thought, well, no, this isn't good. Maybe I should turn around. So I started turning around, pedaling back, trying to take different turns than I'd already taken. The 2-hour points passed at this stage. A boat's passed me, and the guys have thrown me a bottle of Heineken. Don't even remember what I did. I think I just gave it to somebody when I got off the boat. I ended up finding a place. It was 3 hours. It was 3 hours of pedaling this boat, you know, drifting around a bit, pedaling the boat, alternating sort of thing. And so 3 hours when I'd budgeted for an hour. Like, I had nothing else to do, so it wasn't as if I was late for anything. And I said, oh, I'm sorry, I'm a bit late. You were actually the first hire return boat place that I'd come across. You know, do I owe you any extra for the extra couple of hours? And they said, well, no, you've already paid your deposit. We'll just keep the deposit, which is basic. So the deposit was basically the equivalent of the 2 hours that I'd spent pedaling around on the canals of Amsterdam. Now, thinking back on it, if I was a different type of person, I could have just found, because there were every so often, you know, a wharf or just some steps or whatever that I could have just tied the boat or just left it there and just gone on with my day, because it's not as if they asked me for any ID or I didn't fill in any forms or anything when I hired the thing. So I could have just left the boat at any point, but I'm not that sort of person, so I didn't. So I didn't do that. Was all good in the end. I was certainly a bit worried at some points. I'm thinking, am I ever going to get off this pedal boat? But I eventually did find a place, and it could have been quite easy in hindsight just to leave the boat somewhere and make it someone else's problem. But I'm not that sort of person. If you've watched any of my videos or had any interaction with me, you'd know exactly what I'm referring to there. So we're going uphill. We'll just get out of this tunnel. I don't think this train's going to go any higher. We'll see more of this train on an upcoming episode of Simulated Erk Train Simulator. Certainly good to be able to give you a preview of what's coming up with this. It's good to see something in this game that isn't American, that isn't German, that isn't English or from the UK. There is a little bit of stuff that I found via Just Trains that from the Netherlands, for instance. You know, the New Zealand one that I featured a couple of episodes. Now that was a surprise. That was an absolute surprise. But this, she goes alright, 140 kilometers an hour. It's not meant to be a high speed train, but it's certainly doing the job. Just a couple more camera angles and then we'll move on to our next train. It does the job that it's designed to do. You know, we're now on a 300 kilometer an hour section and it's topping out at about 145, but I just thought I'd show you the train anyway. And if anyone knows how to change the colour schemes on this one, I'd certainly like to know how to paint it something a little bit closer to home. Super Voyager! Yes, we're back. Simulated Erk episode 50 is going to be a long one, but then again it's episode 50, so yes, it's going to be a little bit longer. We are now featuring a British train. This is a Super Voyager in the Virgin Trains livery. Virgin Trains no longer is a train operating company, and you can't, via Train Simulator at least, you can't get the Virgin livery Super Voyager. You still can get the train itself, but not in this exact colour scheme with Virgin Trains. This train was actually the launch of another version of Train Simulator a couple of years ago, so you can see the two trains there alongside. Let's jump into the cab. We'll give a bit of horn. AWS. So we'll throttle up and we'll do the same as we have with the other trains. I could spend so much time in England and on the English rail systems and that of the UK. I've only really touched the surface of what's actually out there and all the different train operators that are out there, all the various types of rolling stock. I've got a fair amount of British trains on Train Simulator in my collection. I thought I'd feature this one because, you know, it's something that, you know, won't be easily able to get again. This is, you know, even though it was just a few years ago, it's a different time, different operator. You know, things have changed a lot since Virgin Trains were an operator. You know, they lost the contract and another contractor took over, and, you know, colour schemes changed and all that sort of stuff. So hopefully we won't have the problems that we had with the Chinese train moving forward. Alright, 60 zone coming up, then 110. Now, it's certainly not in the high-speed class of something like the Eurostar that will feature a little bit later on. It'll be interesting to actually check the high speed of this compared to the Azuma, which will also feature a little bit later on as well. Now, I don't think I've actually been on a Super Voyager, but I can imagine what it would be like. So we'll start to increase speed. Nice detailed cab. You really feel like you've got all the controls, you know, all the controls and all the supplementary controls at arm's reach. Certainly very detailed with the and well designed. You know, the driver responsible for door operations as well, amongst other things. Lots of different buttons, well set out, very ergonomic. So we'll increase power and let's see what the Super Voyager can do, eh? I do like the not in service destination indicator on the front of the train. It realises that it's not doing a scenario. If it is on a scenario in Train Simulator, it will actually have the name of it. You know, as long as it's a scenario that it's been, you know, quote unquote wired up for, it actually will show you the destination of where you're going without you having to input it. There's various trains on Train Simulator where you can actually set the destination indicators yourself on some of the more advanced models. So we're doing 100 and what are we doing? Almost 140 at the moment. Now we're about to enter a tunnel area. We'll give the train a little bit more time to stretch its legs. It's just hit 150. You know, it may need some time to build up the speed. Now, obviously, I could go to the internet and type into Google or ask Siri, "Hey Siri, what's the top speed of a Super Voyager?" Now, she's not going to know the answer to that. I could Google, but where's the fun in that? I want to drive some simulated trains and have a chat and, you know, watch simulated trains going through the countryside. What's the fun in just Googling how fast can a Super Voyager go? Okay, Google, how fast can a Super Voyager go? Now, if anyone's phones actually did go off and tell me the answer, let me know via social media. So we're just going through the tunnel section. 182, 183, that's pretty good. Will we be able to crack 200 kilometers an hour? That is the question. Must say I'm rather happy with the scenery, rather happy that I actually chose this route, despite the problems of the Chinese train, which was more of the train itself, I would think. But the train was doing what it was obviously designed to do on that particular route. 198, 199, 198. Now it's going uphill, so we'll probably wash some of that speed off automatically. But this does look like a fun route to drive a high-speed train on. You know, not perfectly flat. You do have your up and downhill sections and sections of tunnel and that sort of thing. Looks like a fun route. Looks like a fun route for sure. So climbing uphill, still 175 kilometers an hour. Now if I zoom in, hang on, zoom in that way. Okay, there's the speedo in miles an hour, so just under 110 miles an hour. On the gauge it says that it can do up to 140. That's not necessarily the case. Like, it might have a ceiling, say, of 125 miles an hour, which is about 160. No, hang on, that's not right. Oh no, that is right, roughly. It might have a ceiling of, you know, say 125 miles an hour. But they will show you a little bit past that, you know, for, you know, design and testing and all that sort of stuff. But it, you know, it's not going to probably allow you to do much above 120, 125, 130 miles an hour, I would reckon. Again, I could look all this stuff up, but where's the fun in that? So we'll just wait to come out of this tunnel section and into the 300 kilometre an hour zone. Couldn't imagine that. Serious, me driving a train at that speed. I couldn't imagine that. That'd be fun. So we'll have a look at some alternative angles. 162, we know it can go a bit harder. Now it'll flatten out. 170. All of the speeds that I'm quoting, unless I say otherwise, are in kilometres per hour. Just passing the 300 kilometre an hour zone now. Almost 190. Can we hit the 200? Now we have passed this point with a couple of the trains before. So just about to smash 200 kilometres an hour. There it is, 200 kilometres an hour now. It's about 50 kilometres an hour under what the Chinese train did, and also the Acela. And we still haven't got it to a couple of the big bangers yet. .211, 210. This is a fairly straight section. May not be able to go much faster than 210. So 210 seems to be a pretty good. 210 seems to be a pretty good one for the Virgin Trains Super Voyager. No stranger to the French tracks is the Eurostar, and we are about to depart on this speed run with the Eurostar. Featured a couple of episodes ago on Simulated Erk Train Simulator. You can get, this is a reskin for the ICE 3, which is purchasable on Train Simulator. The reskin is a free download. Links in the show notes. So I could have featured the ICE 3. It's exactly the same train as this one. It's just this one's got the Eurostar skin instead. Might not be 100% representative of what the actual Eurostar can do, but probably close enough. So let's have a look around. So there's our Eurostar train. Eurostar running between Paris and London. So no stranger to French tracks. Let's get into the cab. Let's get into the cab and have a look, and let's blow some horn, and we'll get out of here. So the Eurostar going very, very well at the moment, 170 kilometres an hour. Now this train is built for high speeds, so should be no surprise. Should be able to do much higher than that as we go into our higher speed zones a little bit later on. Just about to pass 190 kilometres an hour as we come into the tunnel. Eurostar train certainly no stranger to long tunnels. I know for me, I really enjoyed the Eurostar trip, just past 200 kilometres an hour now. Really enjoyed the Eurostar trip, would like to do it again. I really love train travel in Europe where, for instance, you can spend lunch in Paris and then you can have dinner in London, that sort of thing. I really, really do enjoy that thing about how interconnected Europe is with train travel. 226 kilometres an hour now. We're just starting that uphill section of the tunnel. So I'll just pan down a little bit, show you a bit more of the actual cab before we go outside while we're in this tunnel. I love the really noticeable, the really clear brake gauges on the right hand display screen there, which is showing you the braking, various braking meters in a really easy, obvious, huge bar graph form because you're traveling at such high speeds. Now, if that's actually like that on actual Eurostar trains, I'm not sure. This train is similar to the IC3. I don't know if it's exactly the same. But this is a Eurostar reskin for train simulator purposes, so may not match exactly the real Eurostar. But then again, it is simulated after all. 216 kilometres an hour going up the hill, just about to flatten out and get up to the end of the big tunnel section. And then after that, the 300 kilometre an hour zone beckons. So again, might be good for 250. Sure, they go a little bit faster than that in real life. About to exit the tunnel now. Choo choo choo. So approaching 230 kilometres an hour. Looks great. Double Eurocar consist. One thing this model doesn't do, and I think this is the same with the IC3, it actually doesn't show the pantograph up. Oh, that's a bit of a, that's a freaky angle. $245. Can we hit 250? 250's been the ballpark figure to beat so far. The Eurostar could be about to, it's just hit 250. Can it hit 260? We are about to go downhill though. So that will add a few kilometres. Now we'll let it get to its next level section and give it time to level out. Then we'll see what happens. 275 now. It's relatively flat, 277, 278. I think we have a new champion at this stage. $278, $279. Can we hit $280? Yes, we can. $280. It is starting a bit of a downhill slope though. So this is a momentary dip before it'll start to come back uphill. Hitting $290, but it is on a downhill stretch at the moment. So we'll disregard that for the purposes of high-speed test. But look at that feeling of speed that you get as it zooms past. Going slightly uphill again. Great speed comparison between the slowly moving TGV, because there's another train ahead, and the Eurostar / ICE3. Just about to reach the dip of another valley. And now it's about to go uphill again. Across the viaducts. Now we'll let it go on this uphill stretch. We'll let it equalise. But we've certainly seen 275 on flat track. Still slightly going uphill. $269, nice. Starting to slow down a little bit as we're going uphill now. There's another crest coming up now, and it'll start to go downhill again. Okay, so it's about to start another downhill section. So the speed will increase. So approaching 275, which is roughly where it's been before on level track. 280. $290. This is good flat track running now. $294. $294. Let's see if we can increase that or not. Very competitive run. Smooth flat section now. $295. There's a 320 zone coming up. We haven't hit that so far yet. Let's give it a bit longer, see if it can crack the 300. $299. $299. $299. 300. $301, $302. And now we're about to start an uphill section again. Great to be able to see a high-speed train like this on high-speed track that it's designed for. Just able to stretch its legs. And I guess that's the whole point of Train Simulator for me. I would never be able to do this in real life. The tunnel section tunnel section coming up. Very short tunnel, this one. So we'll leave the Eurostar there, 300 kilometres an hour. Welcome back to Simulated Erk Train Simulator. Here is the Azuma. Speaking of trains operated by Virgin Trains, the Azuma used to be operated by Virgin Trains, is no longer, is operated under the Azuma name by LNER. Here's the Azuma next to a TGV. We'll have a look, we'll show you the LNER. This is a reskin of the 801 class that was available via Train Simulator. The reskin, the Azuma reskin, I featured on a recent episode. There were a couple of other reskins for the same type of train, but with a different operator. Let's jump in the cab, get up to speed, and then we will continue. A little bit of horn. Let's go. So part of the reason for this episode is to show off not only the speed of the trains, but also to show you some of the colour schemes and liveries that the various trains have. And as I mentioned before, this is a reskin. It's a free reskin. Link on the show notes for where you can get this reskin from. It's a nice looking train. Haven't ridden one. They were introduced after I was in the UK for the final time in the last time in 2014, and so they're replacing a lot of the high-speed trains, the HST, which will feature for old time's sake a little bit later on in the episode when we get down to it on the list. But 225 kilometres an hour now in the tunnel section again, coming up to the 160 zone, then 230, so going quite well. The Azuma, zoom, originally operated by Virgin Trains under the Azuma name, now LNER. And they've kept use of the Azuma name. Some of the other companies have similar trains but don't use the Azuma brand because that's a Virgin Trains now LNER name. So they'll market it under their own names if they market the train specifically at all. 220 kilometres now. We're just starting the uphill section of the tunnel. We'll come out of the tunnel shortly and get onto the 320 kilometre an hour section. Still feels like it's got quite a deal in reserve. 220, 222 kilometers an hour. Coming up towards the tunnel exit now, and then we flatten out. 320 will be a little bit further down the track, but let's see what we can do. Can we hit 250 and be competitive with the other high-speed trains that we've featured so far? The 300 zone will certainly give the train every chance to stretch its legs. So nice aerial shot there of the Azuma zooming through the French countryside. This was a fantastic idea, Simulated Erk. Well done. So 230, level piece of track. May not be able to go any harder, but we'll see. We'll give it a little bit of time. Passing another train there at the station. So 230-ish seems to be the speed at the moment. We'll just give it a little bit. We'll just give it a little bit longer. So we're about to go. We're about to go uphill. So we'll give it a little bit more time just to get back onto a flat section, but I don't think we'll go much above 230. So 234 now. So 230 seems to be the limit for the Azuma. Now, we know this train very, very well. We saw it in the introduction. We've seen it across Simulated Erk. We've seen it on Train Sim World. It is the high-speed train, this time in Great Western Railway livery. I know that it's not going to get up to the same speed of the other trains, but for old time's sake, let's give her a spin. Uh-oh. Okay. That's a rather bad horn. That's not much better. Okay, let's depart very, very slowly. Now 125 miles an hour was how this train was marketed when it was first introduced to service, so there's no prizes for guessing how fast I think it should go. Unfortunately and sadly, the speedo isn't working, so the rest of the gauges look to be look to be fairly, they look like they're working, although they might not be. That might be just the way that they always are. One way to test that. See if things change when I brake. Yes, they are. Okay, so that's fine. It's just the speedo, the actual speedo itself isn't working. Oh, listen to that diesel. Oh yeah. So we've hit 160 kilometers an hour. I'm not necessarily expecting the train to go any much faster than that. We're just about to go into the big long tunnel section heading uphill, which will be interesting to see how the diesel copes with that. So unfortunately, the speedo in the cab isn't I should correct that. The readout isn't working, the 3 zeros, but the needle is at about 105 miles an hour. So while the readout isn't working, the actual needle on the speedo on the right hand side is working. Speed's just dropping briefly down to about 100 miles an hour. It is a fairly steep uphill grade. So speed's it's dropping now to about 85 miles an hour. It is a fairly decent upgrade though, so I can't say that I'm necessarily surprised by that. But I'll let the train get out of the tunnel, get into a smooth section, and see if we can improve on the 160, which I thought would have been about right for this train. You know, groundbreaking in its time, moving away from locomotive-hauled trains. The HST's certainly left its mark on the railway world, not just in the UK, but around. I've ridden the UK version a few times, but I'm a lot more familiar with the Australian version, which we see on the opening and closing credits, which is fairly similar to what we're simulating now. So a nice aerial view. 120 kilometers an hour now. The train will take a little bit of time to come up to some speed. The 300 kilometer an hour mark is in absolutely zero danger of being beaten with this train. Although, having said that, it's only really been the Eurostar so far that has got to the 300 mile an hour mark. We still have some heavy hitters still in the shed waiting to come out, to use a couple of more cliches out of context. Certainly a nice looking train. Lots of different colour schemes over the years as it's gone from British Rail as it was to the various different operators. Great Western Railway being one of them. And we've actually hit, surprisingly, 175 kilometres an hour, so it's done better than I thought. Might be helped slightly by the downgrades, but we'll see what happens as it goes down this downgrade, works its way up the other hill and then flattens out. Certainly not going to win any high-speed train awards on this episode, but it's certainly got a special place in the middle of the chest for me. $197, hang on, hold the phone. Hold on, relay stations. Have we just hit 200 kilometres an hour? This is a major surprise. 199, just a little bit harder. 200 kilometres an hour. Certainly something that I wouldn't have expected at the start of this run, but this is a higher speed section that this train can really stretch its legs out on. And 200 kilometres an hour for the HST. Welcome back to Train Simulator episode 50, almost at the end, and no prizes for guessing the final high-speed train of this particular episode. We're going to finish up with some steam, but in the meantime, the TGV on home turf in France. Now this is the line that this train is, or one of the lines that this train is designed for. It's on home turf, as I mentioned before. It did excellently. Now, from memory, it may have actually won the high-speed challenge, the Chengdu high-speed challenge, but let's see what it can do on home turf now, as we are awaiting our departure. We'll have a look inside the cab. Blow a little bit of horn. Really? That's the horn? I like that better. Okay, you can turn off now. So the cab certainly looks high tech as we leave the station for the final time in this episode on a high-speed train. The TGV was one of the first trains that I drove, if not the first train that I drove on Simulated Erk Train Simulator. It was certainly one of the launch trains that was on the version of Train Simulator that I first purchased. So it's been a long time since I've actually driven this particular train. But how good's this cab looking, just quietly? So it must feel, now I'm used to it, but it must feel for these drivers that are driving out of here, they know that they've got a high-speed train that's capable of 300 plus kilometres an hour. So to be crawling out of this yard, out of this station, must feel so weird. Yeah, again you're used to it. They'd be used to it, but yeah, it must be a strange feeling for them. So can the TGV can it go ahead and get the title? So we're looking at about 300 kilometres an hour for the train to be competitive. 250's been roughly the benchmark. The diesel HST that we just saw, it managed 200, which is an amazing achievement. But we'll see what happens with this train as we get a little bit closer. It's certainly been a lot of fun producing Simulated Erk Train Simulator. Episodes will continue into the future. We got a little bit of a sneak peek earlier of what's going on. I was hoping to feature some of the slower trains on this episode, but what I might do for episode 75, which is halfway to our next milestone of 100 episodes, might feature the slower trains, the quirkier trains, like the Japanese diesel rail cars, the Auckland diesel rail car. A little bit more steam, for instance. So destination is 92 kilometres away. Oh, that's what we should do for this final trip. It'll only take 20 minutes. Should we end? Let the train do its lap of honour, finish with a bit of steam, and yeah, I think we should do that. Coming up to 110 now. We'll increase the speed slightly. It's a long train, basically a double consist. So it'll take a while for the back of the train to pass that 110 board. And then we'll just let her open her up. Now, it's 91 kilometres away to our destination of Avion. 20 minutes away, but considering that we'll be going faster under these simulated test conditions, we'll see how we go. So let's open up the throttle and enjoy some French action. Rather easily. No, I'm not supposed to be going this fast this early. 267, 270. About to go through a couple of small tunnels. Then we'll get onto a higher speed stretch. I think we have our champion. 290, 292, 93, 94. Just about to hit 300 as we exit the tunnel. 300 kilometres an hour, 307. We're looking at the champion of this high speed challenge in this showcase. Oh no! Oh no! I was not expecting that. I can't end this special episode like this. Oh, wow. I was not expecting that. Speeding once, but it was just continuous. Oh, wow. Got to do a little bit better than that. Wasn't expecting that. We'll restart that one, and we'll give the train more of a we'll replay that. Oh wow, that was huge. How realistic that was, I don't know, but that was huge. Gonna have to put a warning before that one. Do not try like this at home. So we're up to a rather sedate 140 in comparison to what just happened. We'll go through the tunnel. We'll go into the 230 section and then really open it up from there. No doubt to who the champion is. I would just like to get to the end of the line as I promised. So going through the tunnel, 140 now. 160 zone coming up shortly, then 230. And then once we get fully into the 230 section, I'll open up the throttle. At the moment, I'm just coasting. As we have another TGV coming to us in the opposite direction. So going through the tunnel, when we hit the whole train into the 230 section. Okay, now it's just telling us, it's actually showing us on the in-cab display what our speed limit actually is, 160. Now it's changed to 230, so we know that we can open up the throttle now, and we have. So I'll just zoom in a little bit while we're in the tunnel. Oops, helps if I apply power. So 230, there's our target speed in the green. Our speed is just rising up to 130 at the moment. So this gives us a really quick guide if you're traveling at speed, what your actual speed is and what the track speed or your target speed is. And you know, a lot of these gauges and buttons and everything, they're not really meant to be monitored at high speeds. But something like this speed gauge and the target speed is really easy to see at high speed. The window's dirty, hasn't been through the wash in a while. $210. We know what speed the train's capable of. We saw that before it ended up in a million pieces. So approaching the 230, over the 230. And unlike some, okay, that's made a braking application because I was well over the speed there all by itself. That's interesting. So it's bringing the speed back down. Now there are some channels out there that I've seen where people love making their planes crash and their trains crash and everything like that. Well, yes, on this episode I'm curious to see how fast these trains will go. That's not usually the way that I drive. I usually try and drive realistically. Sometimes, yes, I'll give you a look at what the train's going on the outside. So, like the Chinese train before that, all by itself, the train has brought itself down. I'm just accelerating the process now. So now we'll see if we can power again, or if there's something else that I need to press in the dash here. there may be a button that I need to press. I need to find the cab light before anything else. Okay, we'll be underway again shortly, I'm hoping. Here we go. So now we'll just be able to bring it up to speed, and it shouldn't be an issue. We do have the high speed section coming up. Now I'm pretty sure this wasn't an issue in China when I did the previous high speed challenge in episode 24. So very interesting to see. Of course, this train is on its native track, so it would do what it's supposed to do. So leaving the tunnel now. So we'll adjust the view quickly. It's a great looking train. 157. We know it's a winner, so it's purely academic at the moment. Coming up to the high speed and just the acceleration. 300 kilometre an hour zone coming up now. It's doing 200. Feels like it's got plenty in reserve. Of course, this train having the advantage that it is designed for this track. $250. Another train passing it in the opposite direction. Sit back and enjoy the speed of our champion. Our high-speed champion for episode 50 of Simulated Erk Train Simulator, the TGV. Now I've gone too far over the speed limit again. And so, all by itself, the train is bringing itself to a stand because I haven't done anything about it. As it is rapidly decelerating. So I wonder if I shut off here. Now, am I able? No, I'm probably just going to have to bring the train to a complete stand, which I'll accelerate the process of. Now I've taken over braking, and that's bringing it down a lot quicker. Of course, it will still take this train a long time to stop at those speeds. Now, of course, the whole idea normally is to stay under the speed limit, so this sort of thing doesn't happen. Alright, what is beeping at me? Oh, and it's all in French, or mostly French. I can figure out what some of it is. Acknowledge something. Here we go. So I had to acknowledge. Okay, so from a standing start, let's say 300 kilometers an hour, and it'll do it. It'll do it easily by the way that the train's been performing. So 200 kilometers an hour quite soon after being at a standing start. Or just enjoy the train going through its native French countryside. And here we are, we're getting brought down to a stand again, so we'll just let the train go back, come back down to 0, and then we're going to finish up with some steam. It even looks fast when it's slowing down. So here we are, here's our champion of our high speed challenge. And to close up episode 50, I know it's been a massive episode, but I said we're going to finish off with steam, and we are. What better way to finish off than to finish off with this beauty, the Flying Scotsman 4472. And funnily enough, the reason why I picked this locomotive when I saw that it was available was because I've actually seen this locomotive and this engine, and it was in Australia for the Australian Bicentenary in 1988, and it was part of a massive trip around the country along with 3801 and others, and I managed to see on a couple of occasions this Flying Scotsman. It was shipped over to Australia and ran various trips in and around Australia before it went back home, and unfortunately I don't have any photos of it because I only had a little silly film camera of the time. But let's finish up with some steam. Alright, so we'll put our reverser into forward. We'll blow a bit of horn. Oh, how good does that sound? So nice and slow. A very different way to finish the episode compared to the high-speed trains that were saying, look at old mate trying to keep up with the train next to us. I'm just going to keep up with him. How good is this? Seriously. Gonna have to do another Steam episode now, you realise that? So just using minimum throttle, let's have a look inside the cab. Now, in the Steam days, you didn't have very much visibility of the outside world at all. You'd have a fireman on the other side of the cab who would assist you. So the fireman would sit over there, and if they haven't simulated the fireman there, whose job it is to keep the engine running, cold up, and also to help you with signals and where you're actually going. Like, it probably doesn't simulate that well of what the actual view would be like. So we'll just throttle back. But it would be really hard to see out the front. And especially going around corners and that sort of thing. The fireman, the second person now, as that would be known, would have to help you spotting signals. So we'll just put a little bit of brake on. Now, needless to say, this isn't going to break any speed records, but have a look at the gauge. It's showing 20 miles an hour. Gauge is so important in the Steam era, and monitoring, you know, the coal, the water, your brake pressure, your boiler pressure, all of that sort of stuff. Highly important with a steam engine. Very labour intensive. But we'll go outside and we'll have a look. Now, this is something you would probably never see in real life. A steam engine, a steam train, maybe for a tour on a high-speed line like this. So it's coming up to 110 kilometre an hour zone. So I'm just going to open up the throttle and let's sit back, relax and enjoy and watch what happens now. So we are making slow work of it. 24 kilometers an hour at maximum throttle, but this is fun. Not only because I can blow the horn like that, or the whistle. Well, it's probably not the best time for that camera. The brake was partly on. That wouldn't help. We'll bring the train slowly back down to a stop, and then we'll build up the speed again. Our speeds. Oh, okay. I've opened the firebox door. We're actually refilling. We're refilling the engine with coal because it's actually been running out. So that's why we're not going as hard as what we should. I didn't know that. I haven't driven the steam engine for a while in Train Simulator, so the fireman is just refilling the engine. He's putting more coal in, and so we'll see now as the coal builds up. It's at 20% at the moment. Actually, we'll just give it a little bit of time just to build up. You can actually hear the sound effect of the fireman actually filling up the engine, filling the firebox full of coal. So let's see what happens. We're at about 32% now. We'll release the brakes and we'll start accelerating slowly. So you just can't, with a steam engine, I've never driven one. I've been on the footplate of one, but never while it's actually going. Maybe we'll let the engine build up a little bit more. Fill it more full of coal. Because normally this Flying Scotsman can go well above 20 kilometers an hour. Oh, that's interesting. You can click on the water as well, and that'll put more water in as well. So we're just going to have to let the boiler pressure increase, let the water pressure and the water intake increase as well. In reality, this could take a while. A good simulated fireman would never let this happen. And this is one of the reasons why steam's so labour intensive, so physical. Certainly a different era to which we live in now. I think before we do the steam episode, we'll have to do the steam tutorial. Come on, drive your block on the world. Anywho, I am Simulated Erk. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you have enjoyed. We'll do another steam episode soon. And don't forget now, what do I say? Stay behind the yellow line, and tracks are for trains. And I'll see you later. Simulated Erk out.